Hello. Yeah, we're ready?
Yes.
Come on, shoot.
So, I would appreciate you as a member of the jury board of 2A Asia Architecture Award this year, 2017 in Berlin. In accordance to the regulation of 2A magazine, we are interested to make an interview with jury members and especially with you, who are very important for us, and we have received your support and contribution since 2006.
That's true.
Yeah, and that is very wonderful case for us. After around 12 years, we have a cooperation again in this award, and you are acting as head of jury member in this award as well. So we very much appreciate you in this matter, and just wanted to ask you, let's have your opinion in regards to the topic of 2A Continental Architectural Award for Asia and Europe will be positive and effective way to achieve this unique and significant goal of architecture, So let's have your opinion, your comments, your professional ideas in this regard, please.
Thank you, Ahmad Jun. It's really been a great pleasure. First of all, having come to know you now over many years and worked with each other like guest editor for your 2A magazine, in which we've had the pleasure, I think, of publishing at least more than 2 volumes together, and other contributions that we have made. I have thought very seriously about the lessons to be learned from this now expanded 2A awards program. Frankly, I believe that we are in a process of moving from, as you have said, global to continental for now, but really moving toward identifying the regional, bioclimatic, cultural zones of the world and how they create their architecture and their urbanism and how they survive. So this is a process. And in this process right now, we've looked at the Asian jury awards that we have made. So having set more or less the context of the work that we're doing, I'm very optimistic about this way of looking. I do believe that the next step is now to identify that really Japan, bioculturally, environmentally, by its trees and its flora and its fauna, is quite different than Indonesia or from China, and that Iran is quite different from India. There have been certain periods, such as the Mughal period, when Iran and India shared so many things the same. So the Taj Mahal came out of a product really that originated in the four-quartered universe of Iran. So we shared many things, but we've gone, because of great civilizations, in developing our own way to this mystery of human existence. Now, deciphering and defining the spirit and the heritage of regional cultural identities is really quite a wonderful task. I've had the pleasure of studying this since at least the 1970s, when I had the pleasure of working with people such as Buckminster Fuller, the great cosmologist who came to Iran for the first and second conferences in Iran. And he looked at the world in these unifying and separate ways. He helped us define what were the bioclimatic regions of the world. And he looked at the unity and also the identification of the difference. It's this difference which makes the beauty of traveling from Iran to India or to Japan or to China. So in this way of looking, how do you decipher these different zones, their special qualities? I believe, first of all, I personally am interested, are these cultural zones with certain specific messages that are unique to that culture? And when they're unique to that culture, are they closed conventional systems that they have to operate within certain forms, rigid, or no, are they open and do have a timeless quality, like perennial quality, like a flower that blooms every year because that's the way its nature is? So this business of timelessness, bizamani, and time-bound, I believe that we have found that there really are certain timeless qualities in each of these cultures. So I want to say something about what I believe we have learned from this jury that we have made. We essentially looked at Asia, that went from Iran to China. And we found that the prizes that were awarded mainly were based on, the future is based on the past. This is what the jury said after we had made the awards. We looked at what we had selected and we said, what we have picked resembles very much the past. Now, we were very courageous. We didn't think we had gone the wrong way. No. What we had learned was that walking in the footsteps of our grandfather was a very important message about how to survive in the future. Because the world today is 7.6 billion people, and we're really having a great crisis. We have environmental crisis, we have economic crisis, we have social crisis, about how to live in this world which has finite resources. There's only one world we know. There's no other world. We have certain amount of resources, and the only real resource that is constantly being given to us is the resource from the sun. We have to live with the limited energy that we receive from the sun and what is encrusted into the globe. You know, its minerals and its oil and its water and etc. We found that what people are building today and that we awarded were building very social buildings, places where people could meet together and exchange things. We gave awards to such projects. We found that people were building very simple homes that had low energy need, because that's the way to survive in the future, because we will never have total, for instance, energy from fossil fuel. And we have to learn with limited energy, so low energy need. And so we found architecture that we were awarding that were sustainable, that were able to survive even when oil did not occur so plentifully. We felt this was the right way, because most of the world exists in a certain limited, minimal resource. Yes, there may be people that have a lot of wealth, but most of the world do not have that wealth. So we don't have to design for the 1% of the world. We have to design for the 99% of the world. And that's what the 2A award, I think, is talking about. So when you see the projects we have awarded, the projects are very humble, they're very modest, but they're very strong. They're giving messages about how to build elegant but small. There was a beautiful book by Schumacher, who wrote a beautiful book called Small is Beautiful. And then later on, after 10 years, when this philosophy was being used in the world, he wrote another work called Small is Possible. That is, he went and researched that people were actually using his philosophy and building. And we have a beautiful history in that. In Iran, our villages, the way of life, very modest, very simple. I mean, Yazd, Kerman, etc. People existing under huge sun and glare and building very modestly with earth. I met with some of the professors at the universities that are dealing with the new technology they're teaching their students today. So here in Berlin, at the University of Technology, they're teaching their students about low energy buildings, how to have minimum energy use, how to build buildings with zero energy need, that is minimizing the amount of need that a building needs and then generating the extra amount of energy you need by itself. Zero energy need. My God, today most of the buildings that we're emulating are based by Western models of maximum energy need. And how can we exist when in Asia most of our continent are great deserts, are great stress for water and for sand that is moving and desertifying? So I found a lot of lessons in the type of things that we were dealing. But before I finish my presentation on this subject, I found one more thing. I found that the architecture of Asia was dealing with an aspect that most Western architectural quality is not dealing with. And that is that the architecture of mainly the Asian world was dealing with transcendent architecture. It was dealing with an architecture that had not only to solve the material, but it also gave a spiritual inspiration for people. And I found that that was a great contribution. How can we bring that idea of the transcendent dimension of architecture into contemporary building? You know, most of the cities we build, we are building images of very industrialized, machine-made cities. High density, high pollution, car development, everything related to a lot of energy use. And people, in fact, are living in cities that are what is generally called sick city syndrome. And then you go inside a building and inside a room, and all the material is made by materials that create sick building syndrome. That is, it creates certain material odors and exceptions that make human beings not able to breathe properly. We're building closed buildings, sealed, air-conditioned, whereas really we can open the windows for at least half of the year and naturally ventilate. This is the new low-energy technology that is being promoted, but most of our cities are still built on the old technology that we inherited from really Western models. I believe that we're moving into a new domain of how to live sustainably and spiritually. And this is something that I believe Asian architecture and cultures can bring back into consciousness of 21st century life. So I want to say that I think your 2A architectural awards will look modest, but in the modesty, there is a silent humility. And in that, I believe, there is an element of extreme importance. So don't look at the fact that these buildings are not suddenly fancy shaped buildings of great technology. That is not the way of the future. The future is built on the footsteps of our grandfathers. And I know, having gone through now many years with many different awards, that this is something that is extremely important about survival in the future of the 21st century. So I'm very happy to be a part of this jury, and I was a member with two other gentlemen, one from Japan, one from India, and in our conversations, we agreed that the message we wanted to give about this jury and its awards is that the future lies in the past, but in a past that is timeless.
Thank you very much. There is another point that I would like to share with you in this matter, which is the topic that you have already contributed in 2A magazine, which is holistic design. Have you received any points of this topic in the projects that you considered in the award?
I assume you're asking with regards to the projects that we saw,
Yes.
did we see contribution to holistic design in the works that we saw? I must be honest that I don't think I saw a great expression that we have done this project based on holistic design. So people were dealing more simply, not intellectually. They seemed to be doing designs that were holistic by following patterns that have been holistic in history. That is, they repeated a courtyard house. They repeated a project that had places of gathering where people could come and meet socially. Now, I found also something different. For instance, in the Muslim cultural societies of Asia, the places of meeting for social dealt with private meetings. Like, for instance, in Arab countries, they met in Diwania and in places that were like in a place of worship, in a mosque. But in other areas, people met in plazas, in piazzas. For instance, in European projects that we saw. I felt that Europe could contribute something about places of public meeting, which is that you could also meet in places that are outside of your home. I assume that probably the bazaar or the souk are places for social meeting. I didn't see a new city in these projects. We didn't see we saw, for instance, in Tabas, how someone helped do historic preservation of pieces of the old village of Tabas. That was nice. But I didn't see a new city designed holistically. No one submitted such a project. I wish that they would. I think that if you use Tabas as a model and bring it into the 21st century, that would be a great model of how you could do it. And also, I think if you look at the technology coming particularly out of Germany, you know, Germany today is the leading sustainable country in terms of how they use sustainable design in their buildings, in low energy design buildings, in energy produced by solar energy use. I believe that right now this is a country, whereas other countries, I won't mention right now America, which is denying the issue of climate change and of environment. Yeah, but Germany is leading the direction right now of sustainable design, and I'd like very much to have our Asian societies work with Germany in terms of how do you create a neighborhood, a model neighborhood, which uses our cultural tradition, but the low technology that Germany is now learning how to contribute. This is a very beautiful next phase of work I think we can do. It would be wonderful if there were model communities that could be built with this tradition of India and contemporary thinking about low energy technology that is coming out from here. Or in Iran. Iran is a perfect place to learn about how to build new settlements, even a model community that is based on our tradition of good adaptive design, bioclimatically, yeah, which is the villages and the cities of Yazd and others, but then allow us to escape from the fact it's 45 degrees centigrade outside. The best our mud villages do is reduce the inside to 35 degrees centigrade. But today people cannot accept living in that level. It's too hot for them. It's uncomfortable. We need to get this down to 24, 26 degrees centigrade. But today there is process that is being developed of how you take a mud wall and integrate cooling water pipes that can make your wall cooler, and in that way reduce the inside temperature. These are things that can be beautifully learned and adapted. I hope that this is where 2A is also bringing. I didn't see it in the projects, But when I came here and I talked to the university people, I learned about these that they're doing, and I've been doing this all my life. So I think that this is a very important that you brought these awards to a country like Germany, which is, I think, a leading edge in this field of low energy technology for human settlements.
Very nice, thank you very much. So is there more comments, professional comments from your side?
Yeah. The last comment that I would really make to you there is, when you still look at what Western civilization is building, which influences a lot of what Eastern and Asian societies they copy, they use as models, the visual aesthetic of what is being built in the West is still based on machine aesthetic. It is emulating the machine, a computer or a Mercedes-Benz or something. Yeah, it is based on a machine aesthetic. But our culture is dealing with something which is beyond the machine. And I believe that that is an area that we must explore. How do you develop a transcendent aesthetic? Let me say this to you. The world of neuropsychology and its impact on architecture is being beautifully studied today. We know that a beautiful environment affects our mental process differently than a machine aesthetic. And therefore, if you want to have people live more happy lives, more lives that are in association with our nature, then you have to build with more natural materials. So for instance, today, instead of building with concrete, we know that we can build with natural materials that can survive. Do you know that today people are building 5, 6, 7, 8-story buildings with wood, which we thought was not possible, that it would burn or it would disintegrate. But the technology allows us to use these natural products with great mud. We can build 5-story buildings in mud, load-bearing. And that is with the technology that avoids termites to eat the mud. But for instance, a country like Iran, which has a fantastic history of mud architecture, we are tearing it all down as being historically passé, whereas today in Germany they are designing how can we build with natural materials. Do you know that still today it's proven that 60% of the world buildings are still built with mud? Because that's what's plentifully available. So I think that there are a lot of aspects of how to build with more natural materials, which is a very important way that can also give us contact with nature in our work. And in that way, avoid sick building syndromes that are made from very artificial materials, building with more natural materials. It's both pleasant to the eye and it's also closer to who we are. And most important, to build with human scale. Human scale, the proportion of the human being and what's pleasant to the human psyche. Yeah, I think that that's another domain that still needs to be explored.
Yes, thank you very much. خیلی ممنون.
خیلی ممنون.